Here's another personal favourite of mine, folks. The 8th episode of the 3rd series, Diesel Does It Again, based on the magazine stories Trouble in the Harbour Yard and Bumps written by Andrew Brenner. This episode sees the return of the first villain for the TV series, Devious Diesel. But is it as great as I remember it from when I was a kid? Let's steam down to the harbour and find out. Duck and Percy enjoy their work at the harbour yards moving trucks to and from the quay, but the engines feel very exhausted one morning because the harbour is becoming busier than ever. The Fat Controller understands this and promises that another engine will come to help out. Percy and Duck are very glad to hear this and wait, but their relief turns to shock when the engine sent to help turns out to be Diesel. The two engines asked him what he is doing at the harbour, to which Diesel tells them that he was called back by the Fat Controller and to shunt some dreadfully tiresome trucks. To make himself clear, he bumps some trucks hard. Percy and Duck do not trust Diesel and refuse to work with him, not leaving their shed. The Fat Controller is in his office enjoying his iced bun and tea when he gets a call on the telephone from the harbour master saying that there is trouble in the harbour yard. Diesel is working alone, and as a result, the work starts to pile up as the cargo and passengers are delayed on the quay. People soon start complaining about the railway. The Fat Controller arrives and demands an explanation from Percy and Duck, and they explain that they will not work with Diesel. Duck adds that he thought Diesel was sent packing after the lies he told. The Fat Controller tells the two that he has to give Diesel a second chance as he was the only engine available and is trying to help Percy and Duck out by bringing him to the harbour, demanding that the two go back to work. Percy and Duck sadly do as they are told. Things are no better next morning. Diesel's driver did not put his brakes on properly the previous night and he bumped straight into Percy, frightening him and does not even apologise. Later, Diesel bumps some trucks so hard that the loads spill everywhere. Percy and Duck are worried as to what the Fat Controller will say, but they do not tell him after Diesel threatens to brand them as telltales if they do. Thinking he can get away with anything, Diesel becomes increasingly rude while he shunts some China clay trucks the next day. He accidentally shunts the trucks through a set of unsecure buffers, pushing them into the sea.
Fuck.
Although the harbour workers safely recover the trucks from the sea that night, the China clay is gone and the Fat Controller is furious with Diesel upon hearing the news. He tells Diesel that he will be expelled from the harbour before telling Duck and Percy that they will have to handle the work by themselves again. Knowing that extra work is preferable to working with Diesel, Percy and Duck gladly go back to work as Diesel slinks slowly away in disgrace. As I said, this episode marks the return of Devious Diesel, a character that we hadn't seen since Series 2's Duck and the Diesel trilogy. Unless you count his cameos that came afterwards, but this was his first massive return in the TV series as he got another big role this time around. But in this episode he isn't his devious self like he was back in Series 2. He shows off his bullying side that would become a staple for the CGI series. And I love how Michelangelis carries on with the oily voice that Sir Ringo Starr gave him back in Series 2. Of course he doesn't sound exactly like Sir Ringo, but I think he captures the oiliness down to treat. Every time you hear Michael say his Diesel lines, you could tell how much of a blast he's having just using that voice and saying these lines.
Good morning, your worthy fat Sir Topham Hatt sent me. I hope you are pleased to see me again. I am to shunt some dreadfully tiresome trucks. Shunt where? Said Percy suspiciously. Where? Why, from here to there, purred Diesel. And then again from there to here. Easy, isn't it? Wake up there, Percy. You have work to do.
And while my favourite narration for this episode is the early version compared to the redub version, I have to say I do like a little bit from the redub version. It's mostly the bit where Diesel bumps the trucks hard and they scream and Diesel growls. I just really do enjoy both versions for their own reasons. I love how in the early narration the truck's scream sounds more comical.
Diesel, as if to make himself quite clear, bumps some trucks hard. Oh! Scream the trucks. Grrr, growled Diesel.
And in the redone version, Michael does a slightly more serious but still slightly comical version.
Diesel, as if to make himself quite clear, bumps some trucks hard. Oh! Scream the trucks. Grrr, growled Diesel.
And Diesel's bullying in this episode actually plays to real life. Some children at school and even people in workplaces would often get bullied by nasty people, and they often get threatened not to tell anyone unless they want to be telltales, or have something even worse happen to them.
Later, Diesel bumped the truck so hard that the loads went everywhere. What will the Fat Controller say? Gasped Percy. He won't like it, said Duck. Now who's going to tell him, I wonder, said Diesel. Two little goody-goody telltales like you, I suppose. Percy and Duck did not want to be telltale, so they said nothing.
This episode teaches us that going forward with your bully problems is the best way forward rather than saying nothing. And it shows that the bullies will always get their comeuppance at the end of the day. And it made sense for Duck and Percy to be the main characters to deal with Diesel in this episode. Duck because of the rivalry in the Duck and the Diesel saga back in series 2. And it made sense with Percy because Duck's a good friend to Percy, since he's the one who showed him how to stand up for himself back in Duck Takes Charge. And even though Percy never interacted with Diesel properly back in series 2, the fact that he's a good friend to Duck would make sense that he would take his side over Diesel's return. It just shows how close the two are as friends, and it reminds us on how Diesel left a bad name for himself and other Diesels back when he first visited the island, making the steam engine suspicious of any diesel engines who come to the island. It just shows how much of a mark Diesel made on his first visit. Another reason I love this episode so much is because of how funny it is. All those funny moments that appear throughout the episodes. Diesel bumping the truck so hard, Diesel bumping into Percy, Diesel pushing the trucks into the waters. There's just so many funny moments in this episode that makes it rewatchable. I also love how Diesel takes his anger out on the trucks by bumping them really hard. And that honestly makes sense because it gives you the notion that Diesel still holds a grudge against the trucks for singing that insulting song about him on his first visit. It just shows that Diesel's the kind of character that still holds grudges. Even though he's never exactly mean to Duck throughout the episode, aside from just calling him a telltale. It's almost like he's kind of forgiven Duck for what happened back in Pop Goes the Diesel, but is still seriously angry towards the trucks. I mean, all Duck did was not tell him that he was trying to take the Von trucks from the siding, and the trucks just made fun of him by singing an insulting song. So it seems like Diesel's a lot more angry with the trucks than he was with Duck this time around. And the episode was so popular that the CGI series recreated the scene of Diesel pushing the trucks into the water for the episode Diesel's Ghostly Christmas. And the events were also mentioned by Salted Dockyard Diesel. It just shows that this is another one of those episodes that had such an impact with the writing staff. And it's worth pointing out that we get to see some tugs models in this episode. One being the SS Vienna in the background, and Big Mickey working in the background in front of SS Vienna. And from this point onwards, Big Mickey will become a staple for the TV series, popping up at the docks every time there's an episode based on the docks, and eventually getting a personality in Series 21. Overall, Diesel Does It Again is still as great as I remember it to be. It's got a lot of funny moments, it's enjoyable to watch Diesel being his old self again, and it's just an all-around fun episode for everybody to watch who loves the TV series. It's an episode that's definitely worth checking out if you love Devious Diesel, Duck the Great Western Engine, and funny moments that the TV series is well known for.